Have you ever fixed a problem only to have it pop right back up a week later? It is so frustrating, right? You feel like you're just playing whack-a-mole with symptoms. Well, today we're going to dive into a brilliantly simple technique born on the factory floors of Toyota that gets to the heart of pretty much any issue by channeling your inner toddler. Let's explore how this thing actually works.
And look, this isn't just some clever life hack you saw online. It is a core principle of one of the most efficient manufacturing systems ever created. Taiichi Ohno, the guy who basically architected the Toyota production system, saw this as the foundation of their entire scientific approach. The idea is simple but profound. By repeatedly asking why, you peel back the layers of an issue, moving past all the obvious symptoms to find the real, underlying cause.
So, why do we get stuck in these loops of fixing and refixing things? Honestly, it's because we usually stop at the first, most obvious answer. We fix the immediate symptom, the squeaky wheel. But we don't dig any deeper to find out what caused the squeak in the first place. That is the exact trap the 5 Whys method is designed to help us completely avoid.
And the way it does that is, well, it's something we all kind of know how to do instinctively. It's all about embracing a toddler's absolute favorite question.
Just think about it for a second. A toddler asks why, relentlessly, right? Why is the sky blue? Why do I have to eat this? Why? They aren't satisfied with the surface-level answer. They want to understand the whole chain of events. And the 5 Whys method basically harnesses that same simple, powerful curiosity to drill down past our assumptions and get to the actual truth.
Now, okay, to put a more formal definition on it, the 5 Whys is an iterative, interrogative technique. That's really just a fancy way of saying you repeatedly ask questions to map out the cause and effect chain. The main goal here is simple. Find the root cause. The one thing that, if you fix it, will stop the problem from ever happening again.
So how does it actually work in practice? Well, the framework itself is deceptively simple. Let's break it down.
First off, you have to define the problem very, very clearly. Writing it down is key because it helps everyone focus on the exact same issue. Then you ask your first why, and you write down the answer. Now, that answer doesn't really feel like the true origin of the problem. You ask why about that answer. And you just keep repeating this loop until you hit something that feels foundational, the real root cause.
All right, this is way easier to understand with an example. Let's use a classic case straight from Toyota. The problem is pretty straightforward. A robot on the production line has just stopped working, dead in its tracks.
Okay, so we ask our first question. Why did the robot stop?
Well, the immediate answer is that the circuit overloaded and it blew a fuse. Now, a lot of people would stop right here, replace the fuse, restart the robot, and just move on. But that's just treating the symptom, isn't it?
So on to our second why. Why did the circuit overload in the first place? A little digging finds there wasn't enough lubrication on the bearings, which caused them to lock up and strain the motor. See? Now we've already moved from what looked like an electrical problem to a mechanical one.
Okay, getting warmer. So, why wasn't there enough lubrication? The team discovers that the oil pump wasn't circulating enough oil. We're digging deeper and deeper into the machine's mechanics.
And why wasn't the pump working right? A closer look shows the pump's intake is just clogged with metal shavings. We are so close now, but believe it or not, even this isn't the true root cause. Fixing this is still just a patch job.
And finally, we ask our fifth why. Why was the intake clogged with all those metal shavings? And the answer is, there's no filter on the pump. Bingo. That's the root cause. It's not a broken part, it's a flaw in the system's design. You install a filter, and you solve this problem for good.
Now, what's really cool about this visual is how it shows that journey. We started with the obvious problem, right? The stopped robot. But each why peeled back another layer, revealing a new symptom until we finally hit pay dirt, the root cause. We went from just fixing a fuse to installing a filter, a much, much more permanent solution.
So, this seems incredibly simple and powerful. Case closed, right? Well, not exactly. The very simplicity of the 5 Whys is also its greatest weakness. Let's take a look at where this thing can all go wrong.
Despite its elegance, the 5 Whys gets a lot of criticism. Experts, and that includes some folks from Toyota itself, argue it's just too basic for really complex problems. It can very easily lead investigators down the wrong path, or worse, cause them to stop at a symptom they mistake for a root cause.
One of the absolute biggest pitfalls is just flawed logic. Investigators might accidentally skip a step in the cause and effect chain. That's a logic gap. Or they might get the sequence of events totally wrong. Or they might even follow a trail that isn't actually related to the problem at all, leading them completely astray.
And then, of course, there's the human element. We all have our biases. Investigators might jump to a conclusion that just happens to confirm what they already believed, without ever looking at the facts. And worse, the whole process can turn into a blame game, the 5 whos instead of the 5 whys, which completely defeats the entire purpose of the exercise.
Finally, there are some really common mistakes in the process itself. Teams often stop way too soon, just like we almost did in the robot example. Or they go too deep, and they identify a cause that's way outside of their control, like the economy. But maybe the biggest mistake is not using gemba, which is a Japanese term that means the actual place. This means trying to solve the problem from a conference room instead of going to see where it actually happened with your own 2 eyes.
So, if it's so easy to mess this up, how do we do it right? Well, the key is to add some structure and discipline to this otherwise very simple tool.
This slide just illustrates that shift in mindset perfectly. So instead of trying to figure it out from a distance, you must go and observe at the gemba. Instead of just relying on one person's judgment, you bring in a team with different perspectives, people from operations, maintenance, engineering. And most important of all, you replace all your assumptions with hard data to validate every single step in your chain of whys.
And here it is, the absolute game changer. To really supercharge your 5 whys analysis, you add a 6th question to your toolkit. How do you know? It's that simple. When someone gives an answer to a why, you just follow up with, okay, how do you know that's true? This one simple question forces the team to show their work, to bring evidence like machine logs, timestamps, or measurements, instead of just giving opinions. And when you combine that simple structure of the 5 whys with this really rigorous evidence-based approach, you can reliably find the real root cause, time and time again.
And that is the ultimate goal, isn't it? A true root cause isn't just another symptom in the chain, it's the fundamental reason for the failure. If you eliminate it, the problem literally cannot happen again. And remember, the whole point here is to identify and fix a broken process or system, not to find a person to blame. That's how you create a culture of improvement, not a culture of fear.
So, I'll leave you with this thought. Think about some nagging, recurring problem in your work or even just in your daily life. What do you think would happen if you pushed past the easy answer and asked why just one more time? You might be absolutely amazed at the root cause you uncover.